live here on Keystroke Medium. I am Josh Hayes here with my co-host, as always, Scott Moon. And tonight, our guest has been featured as the prominent editor in at least a dozen anthologies and a co-editor in several, including the Monster Hunter Files and the Predator universe. He also edits the anthology Infinite Stars, the second volume of which, Dark Frontiers, comes out on November 6th. He's just released his fourth novel, Simon Says, and that is doing very well on Amazon. You can go out and purchase it today. Bryan Thomas Schmidt, welcome to the show, my friend. It's good to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to cover a lot of subjects today, not the least of which are anthologies, which Scott and I have been a part of and enjoy doing, and especially looking at some of the anthologies that you've edited for. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts on what went into that and what you kind of look for when you do those things. But before we jump into that, I want to mention that our episode tonight is brought to you by Negotiation. It's an anthology of hunter tales from the Four Horsemen universe, edited by Casey Azell and Marissa Wolf. 13 stories in this collection, and we'll talk a little bit about that later in the show. It was our sponsor last week as well, and it's a good anthology. You need to go pick it up. I'll drop the link in the live chat, and it'll be in the show notes. Pick it up, and we'll talk about it a little later. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go first this week for what we're up to, because I've had a rock solid week. I always like to talk about my weeks when I absolutely do no writing, because last week was my vacation, as it were, and I was slacking off most of the week playing video games and doing edits and a whole bunch of other stuff, because I turned in my second Valor book, Echoes of Valor, to Athon Books for editing last week, and I just took the week off, and did a little bit of planning on book 3, but mostly just kind of hung out and did nothing. The cool thing is, first of all, I got this new shirt from Ellen. No Safe Words. If you need an editor, Ellen Campbell, ellencampbell.com. Check it out. Second thing is, I got these kick-ass shoes. I mean, look at these things. Like, if you're a nerd like I am and a video game junkie, these shoes are legit.
They match your phone, though. Do you ever?
They did. I don't have that case anymore. Now I have an Iron Man case.
Oh, right.
But I did have a Nintendo case, and everybody that saw the Nintendo case was like, "Oh, that is the coolest thing ever."
But can they actually control the Nintendo while you run? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I'm gonna check. I need like a little Game Boy screen on the toe, and I could play Tetris.
Seriously.
The other cool thing I did is I started outlining book 3, which we're still having trouble coming up with a name on. I had we thought it was going to be Essence of Valor, but then everybody said it sounded like a cologne. And so now we're trying to figure out what we're gonna do now for
Eau de Velour.
Yeah, exactly. Essence of Valor. Yeah. So I've had a pretty relaxing week, and so this week I was kind of jumping into everything. I got my acknowledgments done. I got the blurb done. Got the updated cover back, and also got the cover for book 3 back. Ha. Secrets. And
you don't have a title, but you have a cover.
I have a cover. We have the original title on the cover, but we're gonna have to change it. So good times. Scott, what about you, man? What have you been up to this week?
Just lots of stuff, writing, going to work. I got medically cleared to go back to full duty, which was like pulling teeth. I had to call like 50 times to the doctor and be very assertive to say, listen, I need to go back to full duty. And that happened, so that was good. Good stuff at work. Working on Reaper 7, should be done on Wednesday with that. It's going to come out on November 3rd, and a couple other projects. So I recently had one I'd put a lot of work into that we decided to kind of part ways with one of my other collaborators, but on very good terms, and they're very supportive of what we're going to do with that. So I'm actually kind of excited because now I can do whatever I want to with that particular story. And I spent 2 years writing that one, which is really unusual for me. Rewrote it a couple of times. And I really like it, so I'll be excited to share that with somebody someday. Other than that, just the same stuff, shuttling the kids around, going to work, writing, doing Keystroke Medium. That's all there is in life.
The best
Conan the Barbarian
ever.
Yeah, that's your whole life.
It's pretty much it. Good stuff.
It's a lot going on, though.
Yeah,
Really?
some days it's more interesting than others.
See, I had a forced week off last week where I hardly wrote because I was releasing a book, and it was a little bit of a distraction. Really, the last 2 weeks, because there was all this stuff I had to do last minute to get ready to, blog posts and all this stuff you have to get ready and all this stuff that hadn't gotten ready. And,
Absolutely.
because I created a publisher and I created a website and I did all this stuff and launched a book in basically 2 months, which was, insane. But I've been around long enough. I know how to do it. So I did it.
Yeah.
Been in the business for 10 years. So I did that. And now this week I'm writing about 1,700 to 2,600 words a day, depending on the day, on the final book of John Simon thrillers. Or I mean, the second book of John Simon thrillers. The final chapters of the second book is what I meant to say.
Cool.
Usually that goes really fast for me. So it's been really annoying me that I couldn't get into it. But the thing is, I packed it so it's basically 3 chapters of nonstop action, and I can't write that when I'm constantly interrupted because I have to choreograph it and like a movie in my head and then write it down. And there's all this technical detail because I'm doing a very realistic cop series and I've got to keep all that in my head. And so I had to take a break. But last week I got to reconnect with my two advisors from Kansas City Police and give them copies of the book and catch up with them, and that was cool, and drop some books off and bookstores. So those kind of things. Plus we're getting ready for the anthology to come out in November, and so I got a lot going on too.
I definitely empathize with the not being able to finish the book. I had about 85 to 90% percent of the book done, probably 5 weeks ago, and it probably took me 3 to 4 weeks to write the last 5 chapters, and I have no idea why. I have an idea why, but I don't know why that caused so much of a hazard in writing the last chapters of the books. And let me tell you, Scott got many phone calls where like, how'd your writing go today? I'm like, well, I got 2 sentences, Scott. That's how it went.
Yeah.
So,
But
I'm going to be done in another 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
But were they good sentences or crap? That's what matters.
Well, I guess that would depend on the day. There was a lot of days that I got really crappy sentences, and there was other days where I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. And then the next day I went back and looked. I'm like, nope, that's shit. Delete it.
The Sideman is probably the hardest book I ever wrote in some ways since like the first 2 novels I ever wrote, because I got interrupted basically a little under halfway through. I mean, 2 years ago, I 4 years ago, Simon Says was done, and we were marketing it with an agent, and getting, this is a page turner. It's a great book. We don't know how to market it. And I was halfway through the sequel, and my agent said, I need you to work on some other stuff because we're not getting anywhere right now. Let's try to get some other things going. And I had several anthologies and different things come up. So I put it aside. So when I decided to get back into it, I had to reread it and revise it. And I didn't have it all in my head anymore because that's how I write. I have everything in my head. So it took a while to really get in the flow again and figure out what I was doing and where I wanted it to go and all that kind of stuff. So even now, trying to keep all the pieces and make sure that all the nuances and all the little, everything ends up in the same spot has been a lot harder than it normally would be because I'm picking up from something that I put out of my mind 2 years ago. So it's I'm just feeling glad that I'm even, I started working at it basically in August when I finished, when I got Simon Says edited and ready to go, through the production process. And so I'm happy that I'm getting it done. But see, Simon Says I wrote in 100 days. And that's 110,000 words, which normally is not how fast I write, but I did. I basically 10,000 words a week, poured that thing out. So I'm kind of hoping when I do book 3, it's a little faster.
Yeah, I'm hoping the same thing. I'll take a couple weeks to plan out book 3 before I actually start writing it. But I have a really good idea about what I want to do with the book, and I think the thing that happened with my second book is that I had an entire character arc that I basically took out, and that was about 15,000 words of character and scenes that I had to figure out where to slide back into in the rest of the book, where I still needed to touch some of those plot points, and it was horrible. Well, the further we get into this, I guess we need to talk about how you got your start. Welcome everybody that's in a live chat. First of all, I want to see who's first. Let's see. I don't know who's first. Oh, my comments don't go back that high. Right now, my comments show Shadow is first, so I'm going to give Shadow the nod this week. Shadow the Illustrator, you get first comment. Golf clap keystroke for that. You get a oh that's the other thing I did this week. Check this out. So in book 2, the squad of Marines involved.
Oh, this is cool.
In the book is called Team Valkyrie, and I got
patches.
I got.
Don't you love that when you get something like that and it won't focus on it?
Focus. Well, it's nice because it's set up on manual focus. Hold on.
Very dramatic. Team Valkyrie.
So yeah, I got
Nice.
those.
Those are cool.
Artie
Full
Cabrera
swag.
designed it really quickly. Actually, it took it like a day.
Is it an actual patch or just a sticker?
It's going to be a patch. This is the first run, which is just
Gotcha.
die cut stickers, and
Gotcha.
then I'm going to make a patch out of it.
Not to belittle the sticker, I didn't mean it that way. But
Oh no! I want to make patches. I think that's really cool. The stickers, the vendor that I go through though, they get them to me in like a week. That's all. I was like, bam.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's cool.
So Bryan, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. How did you get started in this whole crazy thing of writing and then also getting into doing anthologies and with like Monster Hunter and Predator, man? That's crazy.
Well, I started like everybody does. I was young and I needed the money, and I thought writing would be a way to get rich.
That's a horrible idea.
That's how it's worked out.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens to
Now
everybody.
I'm bitter.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
No, I mean, I've been writing since I was a kid. I mean, my mom really has the money quote. She said, "He never plays with a toy the same way twice." I literally was telling stories with my toys, and I would get frustrated because they couldn't do the things I pictured in my head. So, I mean, I'm pretty much a natural born storyteller. But I used to write, fanfic of like children's books that I liked when I was a kid, in grade school. And then I helped write a play in grade school for my class, and I did all that kind of stuff. So I've been doing it for a long time. I got into novel writing late because I went to film school originally wanting to do screenwriting. I went out to LA and worked out there for a while and did a lot of things.
That'd be cool.
And then kept getting that my stuff was a little too cliche and I needed to live life more. So I quit that, became a missionary, founded my own nonprofit. Went to Africa and Brazil and a bunch of places for a while. Did that.
That's
got
cool.
A lot of life experience. And then came back and worked in digital document management for a huge corporation. So I got that side of life. I've kind of lived a lot of different things. And then got into writing after I finished seminary and started writing in 2009. This idea for Moses Meets Star Wars that I'd had when I was like 15 and turned that into the Saga of Davi, which is my first 3 novels, which are out. And here I am.
Cool.
We've had a couple comments about your voice being kind of low. Is there any way you can move the mic closer to your mic?
My voice?
Yes.
Now you're low, Josh.
Slightly low and muffled.
Yeah, you're kind of low too, but I'm on my
your voice
iPad.
just dropped off.
Now my voice drops off.
Yeah. Everybody talk at different volumes.
I'm on the iPad, so I don't even know where the mic is, to be honest with you.
Not sure low now.
I should have probably just pulled the mic out, but I don't have all. I would have had to use the laptop.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Scott,
Am I better? Am I better now?
You sound good right now. Now we're working on Josh's.
Because I can yell if you want me to. No, I'm just kidding.
I can hear you. When we were doing the pre-show, it was a little quiet, but now it sounds about right. And I have no idea how loud I am. My mic depends on how close it is, so I don't really know.
I mean, you sound fine to me, but I don't know. I don't know what they're used to out there in Chatland.
Yeah, Josh usually has the best audio of everybody on the show because he's got like 5 mixing boards and knows how to do it. But something's gone horribly wrong.
The problem is the shoes are soaking up all the sound. You're gonna have
the shoe is probably the issue. So
shoes have to go.
The shoes are the issue. The shoes are always the issue. If you don't have good shoes, you really don't have anything.
No, you don't. I mean, that's your foundation. I mean, if you're going to move forward, you got to have walking shoes.
I don't know. I'm having a fear that I might have to replace my microphone. I think my microphone's going out.
It sounds good now. So we were talking about like
But that gives
missionary
me a
trip.
good excuse to buy the $300 microphone I've been looking at.
Do it, and then and then I'll get hand-me-downs or something. I get most of my gear. But so we were talking about going on trips to doing missionary work in Africa and all these different things. That did you do all that stuff like to improve your writing or to funnel it into your writing, or you kind of
No,
alluded to that?
I did that kind of stuff because I want to make a difference in the world, and I always
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
make a difference. But I had this ability as a musician, and I was a contemporary Christian singer and a worship leader for a long time,
Mhm.
and I had this ability to teach that was kind of naturally came to me, and I went on a mission trip to Africa with another team to do this other kind of workshop thing, and they said we really need music training. Could you come back and do music? So I put together my own teams and started bringing people back and founded this nonprofit called Anchored Music Ministry, which I don't do anymore, but I did for about 10 years and took teams over there and did all these leadership development training. And basically I've got like 40 or 50 students that are now worship leaders that went through my course in Ghana. And then I've got several in Mexico and a few in Brazil too. So
That's really cool.
it's kind of a legacy because all my my kids, my students, who were all adults really at the time or young adults, are now all the big worship leaders in Ghana in their church. So it's kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah,
Like I
so
said,
I mean,
changing the world, making it a better place.
well, I want to, I got into editing for the same reason. I wanted to help people. I'm not the kind of guy that sits back and waits for opportunities to happen. I'm the kind of guy who says, okay, screw it, I'm going to make it happen. So I go out and make it happen. And when I do it, I like to bring other people along with me. So I like to offer them opportunities when I can. So I started doing anthologies because I could employ writers, and I got to work with some legends and put people in books with their heroes at the same time. And I got to work with my heroes. I mean, heck, I got to actually edit and help Orson Scott Card write an ending of an Ender story. Orson Scott Card, love him or hate him, politics aside, the man was a huge influence when I was a kid because I loved those Ender stories. And he had a story and he sent it to me. He said, it doesn't really have an ending. And I said, well, what you need for an ending is this, this, and this. He goes, you're right. So that became the ending. I was like, hey.
Nice.
Right? Yeah.
Lauren Moore, one of our hosts on the show, she runs the Thursday night show, The Writer's Journey, asks, how was it editing for Andy Weir and Kevin J. Anderson?
Oh, well, I mean, they're both very different. Andy Weir hired me as an independent editor for The Martian when it was just online, and he wanted to start selling it, but he was like, I need to get it up to a higher level of quality. And we had a great working relationship. We worked great together. In fact, I still have the manuscript with my notes on it. I've compared it every once in a while to the book. And there are things that he refused to do for me that they made him do in New York. But I was like, hey, they paid you like $100,000, $200,000 or whatever to do it. You were paying me $1,000 and you told me no, so you won.
Customer's always right.
But, yeah. I mean, like, for example, one of the things he didn't want to do is he didn't want to describe NASA. I was like, you got to describe mission control. Everybody knows what mission control looks like.
Yeah.
I'm like, Andy, when is your book set? Well, I don't really want to say. Then nobody knows what mission control looks like when your book is set because nobody knows when your book takes place.
Right.
Things like that, And there were a lot of, the one thing that never really got fixed to my satisfaction, and this is not to be critical of Andy because the book is brilliant and he's a good writer, but all the characters kind of sound alike. That's one thing I wish we would have fixed. But they were all his voice.
The only thing that I didn't like about that book, which isn't a negative about the book, it's just the one thing that I was like, all right, I'm ready to be done with this, was the potatoes. When he starts talking about how he cooks potatoes and the mathematical deal, how he went, I understand why he did it. But when I was listening to it on audiobook, I was like, oh, can we be done with the potatoes already?
It
But
just had a
that,
better narrator. Those potatoes would have come across.
Well,
I was going to say, if it hadn't been Bob Bray reading it, I would have been done at the potatoes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think being one of the things we did work on was one of the reasons he brought me in is I have a lot better scientific knowledge as far as terminology and things now, but back then I didn't have it. I've been doing some hard science fiction and working with scientists a lot, so I've gotten a lot more now because everybody thinks I'm the hard sci-fi guy because I did The Martian, right? So, I've kind of become the hard sci-fi guy, but I was trying to make the book accessible. So I was like, you've got all these abbreviations. Nobody knows what these mean. He goes, well, yeah, they do. I'm like, no, here's I gave him all these abbreviations and I told him what I thought they meant. And he goes, that's not what it means. I'm like, see, not everybody knows what scientific parlance, these little codes that you're using are. And you've got to at least spell them out once per chapter or once every other chapter or something so that people know, because people aren't going to remember either. And you've got so many of them, you can't just do it once and expect people to remember.
Right.
They'll be, spinning back through the pages, going, where the hell is that? What was that again? I mean, it's just those kind of things. So we worked.
Some of them are non-intuitive, like EVA. Even though I've used it in a book, it still is a very non-intuitive acronym.
Well, it's not just that, but some of them actually are. They're the same abbreviation means like 5 different things in different contexts.
Yes.
So if you don't know which science you're actually talking about, in physics it means one thing, in geology it means something. I mean, it's not generally the case that you have crossovers in science, but there are things that in mathematics it means one thing, in science it means one thing, in medicine it means another, that kind of thing. So you run into a lot of that kind of stuff too. So, but the main part was, if you're going to sell it to people, they have to understand what they're reading, or they're not going to like it. So,
Yep.
He did a very good job overall on it. It was just there were some things that we could smooth out and all that. And working with him was fine. That was a long answer, but anyway, working with him was fine. He was great to work with. He's a really nice guy, and we continue to be. We finally met years later at Comic-Con in San Diego, and we continue to have a friendship.
Oh, good.
And he's been really great at giving me credit and helping me get clients for my editing business. And then Kevin, I worked for Kevin as an editor for a short time, a couple of years at Wordfire Press. I've edited several anthology stories by Kevin. Kevin's a professional. He's
been on the show several times. He's a great guy.
He's he's the man. Put that way. Yeah, good guy. Right. So,
Kevin, too. Kevin. Ultimately, they weren't paying the rate that was market rate, and I was like, I can only do this for so long. So
yeah,
I moved on because it was a lot of work, and it was taking up too much time, and I couldn't take regular jobs at regular pay. So working for a third of the pay or something at the time. So I don't know what he does now, but I'm just saying at the time.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, I just can't keep doing that. And, when I'm trying to make a living.
Oh, yeah.
So you wrote a space opera or futuristic space opera trilogy, and now the story that's out is kind of a near future, like tech detective story. Let's talk about that for a minute. It's a kind of a big leap between space opera and then kind of near future police procedural. I not a huge leap.
Well,
different genres.
Star Wars is why I wanted to be a storyteller in the first place.
Yeah.
And Star Wars until The Last Jedi was my first love. Last Jedi kind of ruined it for me, but
we've talked about that a lot.
We won't go into that, but it was one of the worst. They made so many storytelling mistakes. The logic was terrible.
Oh yeah,
and they destroyed the mythology all in one fell swoop. I was really disappointed with that movie. It's the only Star Wars movie I don't own on DVD, and I've never watched it since the theater. I tried once, and I couldn't even get through 20
I tried to watch it a second time for a show we did on it, and I couldn't do it, even though
I watched it all the way through for a show we did, and oh my God.
Yeah, we had a whole episode on that. It was informative. It's
just, it's like he wanted to tell his own story, so he just made it what he wanted to make. He had no respect for what went before, and there's just a lot of issues I had, and I have nothing wrong. I think it's great that they made women heroes and made them more heroic, but they didn't need to destroy the men at the same time, and that's what they did. They basically made the men into, really, terrible people. None of the men were very likable, so it was really disappointing to me on multiple levels. But it is what it is. Disney just doesn't get my money on Star Wars anymore. That's all.
Yeah, I'm not excited. The only thing for Star Wars that I'm excited about is the Mandalorian that's coming out.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah,
I'll check it out, but I can't muster much enthusiasm anymore. And Star Wars was it, man. It was. I even own the holiday special on DVD, dude. I have the holiday special, and I actually watch that thing once a year, dude. So I'm a fan. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's hard because I spent my entire life saying every time I go to a movie, I'm like, I would like to see a movie that was as good as Star Wars the very first time I've seen it. And even Star Wars wasn't as good as Star Wars the first time you saw it. Yeah. You compare Star Wars 1978 to what else was out there, and it was like just not even in the same universe. And nothing's ever going to be that unique again.
It was funny because my cousin had seen it like 10 times already when he took me to see it. And I was like, he said, it's called Star Wars. You got to see it. It's awesome. Star Wars. That's the dumbest name I ever heard. I was like, what a stupid name for a movie, right?
But what is it?
I'm like 7 years old, and I'm like, this is stupid. So then I go, and I was blown away. I mean, it just made me want to tell stories. And so when I wrote my first novel that I got published, which was the Worker Prince, I wanted it to capture the Star Wars feel. So I watched those movies, and I read the Timothy Zahn books and a bunch of other things. And everybody who read it said it was like, it was like watching the Star Wars: A New Hope with different characters and a different story. It had that feel. So I really felt like I accomplished something because that's what I was going for that inner child of me. And that was a different kind of book. That book, those books are very, there's no foul language. There's some violence, and there's certainly some action in them. But this is a gritty cop. Simon Says, John Simon Thrillers, is a gritty cop story. It's really Bosch meets Lethal Weapon meets Asimov's Robot. City of Steel. Asimov is a great book.
Bosch and Lethal Weapon is like a really kick-ass combination in and of itself.
Well, I mean, basically, I wanted the humor of Lethal Weapon and some of the bigger action that you don't get on Bosch, combined with the realistic police procedure as much as possible. And then I wanted to have him have an android partner. What happened is Simon Says started as a screenplay years ago, and I had written my buddy cop movie basically, and it was about this tough macho Miami cop whose partner is killed, and to find her, he has to team with an HIV positive snitch. So when I went back, and it's the story I always wanted to tell. When I went back and started looking for something new to do, and I needed a new series after I finished Davi Ree, I thought about Simon Says, but I thought, I can't write this HIV positive and this cop thing now because it's going to come across as homophobic and people are going to hate it. And
right.
There's all these issues about that attitude now. And so it won't come across well. So instead, I thought, what can I do? And if I made him a Luddite, who's a kind of a technophobe and an old school cop, who's forced to use more technology that he hates, that would give me the same effect. So that's what I ended up doing. So basically, John Simon, to solve his partner's, kidnapping, has to team with Lucas George, who is this humanoid android security guard, who's one of the only witnesses to the situation that can maybe help him. And in the process, they build up a friendship. And along the way, Simon has this really precocious preteen daughter who basically says, Lucas, you'd sound more like a cop if you watch these cop movies. So he uploads, whatever, all these cop movies into his head. And basically, he doesn't have to watch them. Now he knows all. So he starts using all the phrases from all these different movies, but he doesn't know the context.
Right.
So he's
nice.
He's quoting them, and it's like, that doesn't make any. Why are you saying that now? That doesn't make any. So I milk that for a lot of humor, and it's a lot of fun. The awkwardness it creates and all that kind of stuff.
He just says book them, Dano, at random intervals, and they're like, we don't even have anybody to book.
There's a scene where he basically is interviewing this. He takes over interviewing the suspect without being invited to. Right? He's not even a cop yet. He takes over interviewing the suspect. And he's like, "Hey, did you ever pick your toes in Poughkeepsie? Why were you picking your toes?" Which is from the French Connection. It's a famous interrogation scene, right? And afterwards, he's like, "What is picking your toes?" And he's like, "Nobody knows. What the hell are you talking about?" Right?
This is kind of very random.
Right. But he does. There's things like that, and he'll say things to Simon like, "I know why you're tired. You're too old for this shit." So you get all that kind of
right.
Interplay and those kind of things. So it's a lot of fun, but it's definitely gritty. It's got the 4-letter words in it. It's got I spent a lot of time riding along with the KCPD. And I did a lot of research, and it's how cops talk. It's what they deal with. All that stuff, as much as possible, set 10 years from now in the future. So the ironic thing is some of the technology that I was making up when I started, and the book was done 4 years ago, is now real.
Yeah.
I created this fingerprint system that one of the cops told me as a gag to mess with suspects. He would take out his cell phone and press their thumb against the cell phone and say, "I'm taking your fingerprint and running it through the database. You better start talking right now." Well, they didn't have technology to do that, so I made up a system that did that called Prince. It's in the book. Well, guess what? KCPD just told me last week that system's about to be installed. They have it now.
Yeah, we have that. It's a morpho-ident.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. I have to run that device for my department, and I get called all over the city, people to want it. And I always get frustrated. I'm like, well, how about you do some cop work? And then when I get there, because I'll walk up and in about 30 seconds, I'll have figured out who they are. And I'm like, yeah, why don't you try running them and asking for scars, marks, and tattoos before you call me all the way across the city to stick their thumb on a thing? But that's a whole other story. That's me bitching about work. I'll just stop
apparently
right
it doesn't
now.
work on every cell phone then if you're having to run across town. So.
No, it can't because of security issues. It has to be on it's a very rigidly controlled thing because it's you got to run NCIC and stuff like that.
Right, sure.
And that's not something they're. I mean, what you're talking about might be different if it's on a cell phone, but they won't let us.
Well,
they're very strict about it.
It may not actually be on a cell phone. They didn't get into specifics, but they said it's basically something they can use in the field to take those fingerprints and get.
Oh yeah, this is cell phone size. It's about the size of a cell phone. It looks just like a cell phone, and I take it out, and I have a specific computer I plug it into, and I download it that way.
But the one in the books actually runs off a cell phone, and you can literally put their thumb on there or their finger, and you can, instantly run it through NCIC, and you get all this stuff. So, I'm imagining a future.
There you go.
Guy Anthony DeMarco in the chat asks, ask him about the Mr. Robot scene.
Mr. Roboto scene. Oh, Anthony,
Mr. Roboto scene.
That's my editor. Well, there's a scene where Simon has to interview this lady who he thinks is a witness that might have some information on the bad guys, and he tracks her down to this karaoke bar, and she's there with a bunch of Japanese businessmen. So he's like, "Look, Lucas, I need you to go entertain those guys so I can have a moment with her to talk to her." So next thing you know, Lucas is up on stage karaokeing with the Japanese guys, and they break into Mr. Roboto, and Lucas is doing the best robot dance Simon's ever seen in his life while they're all singing Mr. Roboto. And I actually cleared the lyrics with sticks, so I actually got official permission and paid for permission to use the lyrics.
So
they're in the book. So it's pretty funny because in the background, he's interviewing this witness and they're commenting on, "Did you know he could dance like that? I had no idea. He's actually pretty good. What the hell?" And so he asked him at the end of the thing, he's like, "Where'd you learn the robot?" "Oh, it's part of my programming."
It's included in the last upgrade package.
That's right. I mean, that's the kind of humor you're going to see in the book, and the idea is there's some pretty intense action, there's some pretty intense drama, but the humor comes in at the right moments to lighten it up, and in the process, Simon's pretty gruff, he's pretty angry, but he starts to soften as he starts to care about this android, and they become friends, and there's this whole bonding thing going on. So I mean, it ends up being it's really a friendship story, and there's a lot of that coming of age of this android at the same time as he's building his friendship with this grizzled older cop. So I mean, I think it's a lot of fun, and the Roboto scene's pretty much everybody's favorite scene who reads the book.
Cool.
I like
the idea of friendship story. I mean, I think that really appeals to me. I'd probably read it just for that.
In fact, if anybody wants to see, I will give you a link later. It's online, the Roboto scene. One of my people put it up there as a teaser. So it's Anthony Cardno has it on his blog, so you guys can read the Roboto scene if you want to check it out. Not you two. You have to actually read the book, which I gave you
read it. I'm gonna read that book.
I want to talk a little bit about our show sponsor real quick before we continue on with our conversation. And our show sponsor this week is Negotiation by Casey Azell and Marissa Wolf. It's an anthology in the Four Horsemen universe. 13 incredible authors, 13 stories about the pick, what they were, and where their society goes from here. It's the 22nd century. Humanity has taken its first steps into the galaxy, and we found ourselves in a vast playground of alien races, environments, and cultures. As the newest players on the Universal stage, though, our position is readily apparent. We're at the bottom of the food chain. But we've found new allies that depict are feared across the galaxy as the ultimate assassins, but when an attack on their homeworld devastates their society, the survivors are scattered across the galaxy. As humanity helps bring their civilization back together, though, how do the remaining Dippic adults put their society back together and teach their young kits and kittas about what was lost? Stories, Not only are stories told to educate, but also to help the undepicked make sense of their place in the galaxy that is so much bigger than they are. Enter now the world of the assassin as the peerless killers decide how to make their way forward, and 13 amazing authors imagine the paths these hunters will take. Those paths are paths of doom. That is
Doom.
Negotiation, an anthology of Hunter Tales from the Four Horsemen universe, featuring stories by Jody Lynn Nye, Jonathan Browsey, DJ Butler, Mark Wandry, Terry Mixon, Kevin Eikenberry, Kevin Stevenson, Jamie Ibsen, John R. Osborne, Joseph Captapon. I'm going to mess that up. Casey Moores, Casey Azell, and Marissa Wolf. Go check it out right now. It's the #1 bestseller in science fiction anthologies right now, and it's only $4.99. Go pick it up and give it a read.
A lot of fantastic writers and fantastic people.
Casey's really good. Casey's a really good writer. She's also a huge friend of the show. I definitely encourage anybody, if you've never read anything about anything by Casey Azell, rather, you need to go pick up Minds of Men by Casey Azell. Is fantastic if you haven't picked that up.
Hey,
Okay.
Guy,
Pretty
if
awesome.
you're out there, Guy, do me a favor and go out and pull those links for me for Anthony Cardno and that chat that I have with all my team, and for the book too. And you can put them in that chat because I can't enter stuff in chat. I'm trying to do it this whole time, and I don't know what the deal is. So
Oh yeah,
they won't let me
that's
talk to you people. I'm
You
sorry.
can't do it.
Only Josh can do that because he opened the show. So
That's right.
Oh, I see.
that's why I like to. I would love to help, but I'm just worthless over here. I just sit here.
He just
Wait
hangs
for
out at the
Josh.
bottom and just kind
Yeah.
of
Like,
throws
that's
By
why
the
I'm always
way-
on the bottom of the screen. It's so I still feel so
I can do it like
marginal.
this. All right, here I can set.
By the way, the Fox
There we
TV
go.
show you guys are comparing this to is called Almost Human. It had Carl Urban in it, and it really wasn't that good. That's why it didn't last. I hope this is a lot better than that. I only saw one episode of it. That was all I could take.
I haven't seen it.
But hopefully Simon Says is a lot better. But anyway, I did read the chat. People know I'm actually paying attention.
They're in there. See, not all of our authors get in the chat. Some people love it being there, and some people.
I did a little detective work to see what people were saying about me while you guys were doing your little commercial there. So
What
There you
what intrigued me about the book, rather, and this is probably a wrong initial assessment or initial assumption about the book, is when I look at the cover, it reminds me a lot of the 90s books by William Shatner, the Tech War books, which Tech War was, I think it was more than 10 years in the future, and it was a lot more campy science fiction than I think really gritty science fiction. But that's what I get when I look at the cover. A very, very technical, very like high tech type of story. Is the technology in this book? Is it really prevalent, or is it just kind of a window dressing for the story or the mystery? What do you kind of focus on this?
well, the second largest character that the story revolves on is an android.
Android.
So that's pretty high tech.
Yeah.
He's a humanoid android that people can't tell that he's an android except for by how he talks.
Right.
A little bit with his
And
awkwardness.
dances.
So
And
I'd
dances
say that's
and
pretty high.
sings.
But no, there's a mystery involving stolen art and nanotech chips hidden in the art. That's the main mystery of the first book too. So you've got some high tech stuff going on there, and there's a lot of technology that obviously, like I talked about with the cops and different stuff too.
And you mentioned you're writing the second book and you're getting ready to start the third book, or you're planning the third book. Do you envision this to be a long running series? You're going to cap it as a trilogy, or what's your plans for it?
I've got 8 books planned out right now, but I don't know if I'll do them all. But if it's successful, I will. If it isn't, I won't. Probably won't. But I love these characters, and I have a lot of fun writing these books. And I love doing the ride-alongs and working with the police on different stuff. And I'm trying to do a series that actually represents police in a more positive light. I mean, there are corrupt cops in my story on occasion when it's called for, but I mean, because cops are people. There's good and bad in anything you do, and let's face it, it's a really handy storytelling device. But I'm actually trying to represent cops in a more accurate and positive way than they typically are represented. So I take that very seriously. The research is very heavy. It's the heaviest research I've ever done for anything, and I spent a lot of time researching not just the cops, but also the technology and all those kind of things too. Plus the city, Kansas City. I spent hours and hours in a car with a guide going around Kansas City, learning all these different neighborhoods and all these different history, so I could put stuff in the book. And I'm going to be doing that again. because
Kansas City's a great town. I love visiting there.
well, people have a lot of stereotypes about Kansas City and this old cow town and barbecue and various things, but there's a lot more to it. There's some interesting history, and I'm trying to bring that in and bring these iconic Kansas City places to life.
Did you do your ride-alongs with Casey Mo or KCK?
KCPD, which is Casey Mo.
Yeah, that's
My
the larger
I could,
department.
yeah, I could do KCK. My nephew is actually a cop in KCK at this point, so I
Yeah,
could do KCK if I wanted to, but I decided to do Casey Mo because I wanted to do scenes in downtown Kansas City and stuff, and most of that is all in Casey Mo.
yeah. I think you get probably more of a variety, more depth of the setting in that. So, I
And pretty
mean,
much every ride along that I did was in the like the literally we'd go in at 9 o'clock at night and we'd ride all night long till 6 a.m. or something.
yep.
And it was
No pork watch.
basically what they called the dog watch. And I basically was riding on the Prospect Corridor, which is the worst neighborhoods in Kansas City where all the gunfight, all the shooting goes on and different things on a regular basis. I mean, the first night I went out on a Friday night and we had 2 calls to the same address, one at the beginning of the shift, one at the end, for gunshots and shooting incidents at the same house.
Oh yeah.
There's another one where a woman was chasing a man with a knife. There were, there's a car chase that we got on the tail end of. There's all this stuff going on. At the end of the night, the cop's like, "Man, I'm really sorry. It was such a boring night, Brian." I'm like, "Dude, you clearly have no idea what I normally do on a Friday night."
Right. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting to me is that I had I don't know how many ride-alongs, hundreds of ride-alongs during my 10 years there, and it's absolutely true. I've done that before where we've done I don't know how many calls. We had a busy night, and I turned to the guy and I said, "Man, I'm sorry we didn't get into anything." And he was like sitting over there going, "Are you kidding me? This was the funnest time I've ever had." And I was like, "Yeah, you could have had better. You could have had better."
It's funny because I have vivid memories of it, including there was an officer involved incident that I was like literally in the middle of that was insane. The guy's basically getting charged with assault 3, which is one step down from homicide, as far as the law goes. I mean, major. So, I mean, I've seen everything from that to just, somebody fighting with their husband over the kids or, or somebody broke in somebody's house and, those kind of things. And to me, it was all fascinating because I spent time talking to the cops. I mean, and funny things would happen. Like I was sitting in the back of the car, which normally when you're with a team, you have to sit in the back of the ride along. When you're with a solo cop, which is most of my ride alongs, you're up front.
Yep.
So I'm sitting in the back and they go into, Quick Trip to get drinks and stuff. Because we're working 10-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts. So they go in to fill up their drinks, and I said, I'm just going to take some notes. I'll sit in the car. All these people start coming over and staring at me and looking at me because they think I'm under arrest, right? And they're getting really close. So at one point, I just wait till they get close, pop the door open, and go, "Oh, excuse me, I need to get out. Hey, can I help you?" And they take off running. They're thinking, "Oh my God, he's loose, he's loose." It was so funny. Because actually what people don't realize is KCPD does not transport in their cars anymore. They call in the paddy wagon. So everybody's assuming,
For every call or
pretty much.
Really?
They don't have the screen between the seats anymore, and the shotgun's right there. So I don't think they'd be putting any prisoners in that car. So they don't have the screens in between, and they don't have a way to restrain people. They'll transport witnesses in the back of a car, but they're not going to transport suspects. They have paddy wagons that they call out, or
I wonder how inefficient that is.
That's gotta suck. I hate to be that van guy. Oh my God.
I know how busy Wichita is, and Wichita is slightly smaller than Casey Mo, as far as officer count goes. So, but I can tell you, we would
need like a fleet of vans. We need 50 or 60 vans to make that
just to cover the arrest on day shift. Yeah. Oh yeah, it'd be crazy.
Well, they have a lot of vans, and they have one person per shift at night that per each shift, and you're talking about all the different districts, right? Mm-hmm. So there's 7 or 8 vans on every night.
Well, and the other thing too is sometimes you can depending on the crimes. We used to do that where we would if somebody had the van, they'd put they'd drive through and scoop up everybody's prisoners on the way to the jail, and they'd have 5 different people from 5 different cases, and sometimes there's some liability issues there probably, but yeah, that could work.
They may have some transport capability with certain vehicles, and they may have certain vehicles where they can handcuff them to the door or to a bar or something. I don't know, but they told me most of the time it's the paddy wagon. So
yeah,
I've actually responded with the paddy wagon. So you kind of have interesting experiences. I mean, one of the funniest stories, another funny story is I'm sitting there talking to this guy that we had to hunt down because he's been chased by a woman with a knife, and his girlfriend had been found in a dumpster the night before, and her daughter was chasing him with a knife, thinking he killed her. Right. So they handcuff him, and he's sitting on the front of the squad car, and they're like, "Hey, will you, just chat with him for a minute? We got to go call the detective, see if they want to hold him or what. They've already talked to him. We don't know." So I'm sitting there talking to this guy. The cops are a few feet away making their call, and there's one rookie cop over near me, and I'm just talking to the guy, and we're just literally talking about how'd you come to Kansas City, what's life like, all this, blah, 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 just normal stuff, right? 3 nights later, I'm having dinner with my friend Jonathan Mayberry, who's an author. And Jonathan is a hand-to-hand combat expert, used to train SWAT teams and military guys, and he writes these really great Joe Ledger thrillers that I've worked with him some on, and Jonathan's telling me all these different ways to kill people with your bare hands, and I just start laughing, and he's like, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, 3 nights ago I had a more normal conversation with a murder suspect than I'm having with you." That's life with writers, right there.
Oh yeah, no joke.
And that's how normal it can be. I mean, these are just people. You're on a ride along. Cops are people. The people are people.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your writing process. You mentioned that you have 8 books planned, but of course, if it doesn't do well, you can always sign off earlier from the series than that. A lot of people, when they go into that, will outline the book arc and the series arc. When it comes to actually writing the book, you say it took you 4 years to write, and I understand.
No, it didn't take me 4 years to write. It took me 4 years to decide to self-publish after I'd written the book in 100 days.
100 days, okay.
Oh, nice.
So the writing the first book, did you plan it all the way out before you started writing it? Do you pants as you go? And a mystery series, you kind of need to know all the ins and outs.
No, you don't. You don't. You know what I did? I did pants it. But here's the thing. I had 50,000 words of screenplay that I was basing it on. So I was modifying a screenplay that already existed, and then I had to expand it, and I revised it. And so I used everything in the screenplay and then made a lot of changes and revised and then added on to it. So that made it faster. But truthfully, I basically know the turning points, the midpoint of each act, of each of my 3 acts, the turning point at the end of each act, what the midpoint of the book is, and what the climax is going to be, and that's all I need, and I can write the book. And I figure it out as I go. Now, sometimes you have to go back. That's why I say I was telling you guys earlier, the magic happens in the rewrite. I get it down, then I figure out there's stuff that I had to put in to make it work, and I had to figure out some clues and stuff. So then I go back and seed all that stuff in earlier in the book, and it's seamless. Nobody knows the difference.
Sure.
But I don't have to plan all that stuff out. In fact, I know a lot of mystery writers. Glenn Cook, for example, who writes The Black Company and mysteries and all kinds of stuff. Glenn told me that he just wings it too. He doesn't ever plan that out. So you don't have to. A lot of people like to.
Yeah.
I get more of an outliner when I do tie-in stuff, and I do more outlining with series when I'm doing a second or third book than I do with the first book.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, when I say I have 8 books planned, I basically have a TV guide description of each plot line, A, B, C, D, whatever. Usually there's actually 3 plots in a John Simon book. The W. Reed books actually had 6 or 7. They were like a Hill Street Blues type of thing going on. So I have the basic plot line, who the main characters are, and then kind of an overarching 2 paragraphs description, and that's what I have.
Guy mentions that you can break out a lot of words and says you post your word counts on Facebook. What's your daily word count like when you're writing, when you're drafting?
Typically, like I said, 1,700 to 2,600 words. I think the most I ever did on a day was about 7 grand, but that's rare. Yeah. But like I said, that's usually near the end of a book when everything's really coming together, and I just pour it out.
Yeah.
The current book, The Sideman, which is book 2 in the John Simon series, is a little harder for me to do that with because it's like 3 chapters of nonstop action at the end. It's all this stuff coming together, and it's like when I do that, I have to write in segments because I'm choreographing it in my head, and then I have to stop and choreograph the next section because I'm like, wait a minute, I'm starting to repeat myself. I don't want to do the same. I did that move before. I can't have him do that same move.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Is your, I know some crime thrillers kind of deal with the enforcement aspect and then the legal aspect of the case. with your series or your books, you just kind of focus on the police aspect of it. Do you go into the courtroom or the case aspect after the fact, or do you just basically get you caught the murderer, that's the end of the book?
I'll probably eventually do that, but I'm gonna have to do a lot more research. Right now, I'm focusing on where the police stuff, because that's where the action and the excitement. I mean, we're talking about books that generally there's a nice big action thing every 3 chapters at minimum. Sometimes it's every other chapter. Sometimes you get a whole section of it at the end where there's like a whole chapter full of action nonstop.
Yeah.
Or in this case, 2 or 3 chapters at the end of book 2. I mean, book 2 is basically about a plot with some former military ordnance guys that have decided to blow up the sandstone mines underneath Worlds of Fun and Oceans of Fun, and sink the whole thing down with to make a big statement, because they want to prove that what Make America Great really means, and they think Trump got it wrong. They're not Trump fans. So
I would be really disappointed if Worlds of Fun got blown up. I'm just gonna say that right now.
One of the 2 amusement parks, Worlds of Fun and Oceans Park, does not survive the book. So I'll tell you that. I just wrote that today. But it will get rebuilt. Don't worry, they'll rebuild.
We had a huge discussion with my 9-year-old the other day about whether or not Six Flags Over Texas was bigger than Worlds of Fun. And I've been to both, but it's been a minute, so I don't really know.
I don't. Worlds of Fun is getting bigger though, so I don't know that. I wouldn't know either, because I've been to both too, but it's still a pretty sizable park. But Worlds of Fun and with Oceans of Fun, it's even bigger because they're right next to each other and they're connected and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, we haven't been for a while. I need to go again.
I've been up there.
I know it's been a bit.
We need to plan that Keystroke Medium Worlds of Fun.
We do that Keystroke Medium on the roller coasters. We can all be woo.
So tell us about your next plot point.
Yeah. We're gonna die.
That's awesome. So the Simon Says is out now. And when did you say that the next book's going to be out? February.
Should be about mid-February. Yeah.
Excellent. And the anthology we didn't get to touch on a whole lot. It comes out November 6th. Infinite Stars, Dark Frontiers. What's the theme of that book? What happens?
It's basically the best military and military science fiction and space opera, including classic stuff. We have one of E. Doc Smith's early Lensman stories, one of his only standalone short stories in the second volume. I have the original Northwest Smith story by C.L. Moore, and then I have some, I have new stories by a new Ender story, the one that I got to write the ending for on to help write the ending for. I shouldn't take all the credit. I don't want to make Mr. Carr angry or anything, but I helped suggest an idea for. Let's put it that way. That's a better way to put it. Things like that. So I have a mix of new stories in existing universes and then old classics, so that people can kind of basically collect these books together and have the best of space opera down through the years. And so there's another volume that's already out that has a bunch of stuff, and this is the second volume, and I'm hoping to do a couple more and really create a nice space opera and military sci-fi library for people. This new book has an essay about space opera and military sci-fi by David Weber that's brand new for the book too.
Oh, very cool. David's been on the show several times. We like having David on the show.
Yeah, David's a really nice guy. I like him.
Loves to talk. That guy's got things to say.
Yeah.
Well, that man does. I mean, talk about research, man. He always puts those appendices in all these books with all these really complex military crap. It's like, holy crap.
Yeah, he really knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff, man. So he's like a military historian. He really knows his stuff. So
yeah, we always tease him because he's been on the show twice, and I think that's like 8 hours of viewing or something if you had it all together.
Yeah, I did a podcast with him too, and but he has a lot to say because he has.
Oh yeah, he's
carrying a lot in his head.
He's
I think the first show we had like a 2.5 hour runtime. The second show he has actually, I think hadn't he done 3? Or am I missing one?
Well, he did. Oh, I'm so lost. But the point was we had like an hour before and after the show too.
Yeah.
So, and you're talking to David Weber, so you're trying not like to get up and go pee or something. Your eyes are floating, like, I'm gonna die.
David, you're making me have to pee. Please stop talking.
Yeah, you're killing me.
We had one.
We had his wife on. We had the wives on.
We did have the wife show. We had his wife
fantastic as well.
Yep.
Oh, she's a sweetheart. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great show. They're all great people.
Yep.
Well, we're coming to the end of the show. I'm gonna pimp your book again one more time. Simon Says I'm gonna put the link in the description, and we got that link from Guy. I put it up here earlier for that blog
Here it is.
talking about. Oh, it's a great looking book.
There you go. And in the
Love it.
back, this is actually a picture of Kansas City. And all the pictures for book 2 I took myself. So we're actually, except for the two models who are, stock photos, and I'm going to actually use the same models in several books. I have different photos of them that I got.
Cool.
So, yeah.
I like that.
So anyway, yeah. So that's out. It's everybody tells me it's like a page turner. You can't put it down. And I mean, Guy edited it. He told me he had to go back and edit because he was reading the book. He got so caught up in it. He's like 4 chapters ahead and go, oh, crap,
Focus,
I was supposed to be editing that.
You go back and you look at the thing, and you're like, you had a whole bunch of red marks here and a whole bunch of red marks here. Not any red marks here. We're gonna need to go back
because
and
in between I was genius, right?
yeah, that's
magic.
I actually got an edit back from Ellen Campbell like that, where I had a whole block of text that was not formatted or it wasn't edited, and I asked her, I was like, did I do really good here, or did you just miss it? Yeah, sorry, I've got to guess.
I was like, oh, is it the Hulk?
This
Sounds
is what
like-
happened. So Ellen was editing his book, and her kid came in, and she just basically flipped
Yeah.
the pages and didn't
Yeah.
realize it, and got done with the book. I mean, that's what happened.
It could
Sorry,
happen.
my son wanted to show me his dinosaur jammies, so
Oh, okay.
I was really excited about those.
Yeah.
Important stuff.
Good.
Important
That's
stuff.
important.
Yeah.
We should have a pajama party show on Keystroke Medium. We all wear our pajamas.
That's right. That's right.
Only half joking. This could be really interesting.
Well, everybody that joined us live tonight, thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight in the live chat. I didn't see if anybody was watching from Facebook, but if you're watching from Facebook, let us know, because we're now simulcasting because we're cool like that.
Cool.
If you're watching on YouTube for the first time and you like what you're seeing, please hit the subscribe button and then hit that little bell, ding, and then you'll get notified when we go live every time. Next week, speaking of the anthology, next week we're having Casey and Marissa on to talk about it. So that'll be a good show. Casey is always fun to have. She's in Japan right now, and so the time's a little wonky, but it's always a good time to have her on the show. You want to come hang out with that. On this Thursday, on the Writer's Journey, we have Nick Cole and Jason Onspach talking about Killing Your Darlings with Lauren Moore and Kayleen Williams.
That'll be good.
Let's see who's on. Oh, and then Mal Cooper is going to be on next week after that on the 31st. Halloween. They're actually doing a show on Halloween. I wonder if they're going to be. I know Mal's going to be dressed up. I know that for a fact. I wonder. We're going to have to make Lauren and Kayleen dress up for that episode.
Everybody, cosplay. It's a cosplay episode. It really should be.
The special
In honor of
Halloween
the guest.
Keystroke Medium. If you're listening on the audio feed and you haven't experienced what the live chat is all about, come and hang out with us at YouTube or on Facebook now on Monday
It's
night.
the right thing to do.
It's the only right thing to do. Next week, I think we're going to do some giveaways. We'll see. And then 20 Books to Vegas is coming up. We don't have an official meetup scheduled. There was just too many things, too many meetups going on at the same time, and we weren't able to get an official one set up. But we're going to basically do a hangout, either one evening or like a lunch or something. Where we'll have everybody come together and just hang out, drink a beer, do fun things, watch the animatronic.
Watch the animatrons, yes.
Yes,
my favorite part about going to
the wondrous animatronic theater that is in the middle of
Samstown.
And if anybody's interested in the Simon Says, there's a 3-chapter preview of that posted. If Guy put the link up, it's at BrowixBooks.com on the Simon Says page. You can actually read the first 3 chapters, and I actually on my blog have the first 2 chapters of the Sideman up too, so you can actually see where the series is going.
Oh, cool.
I posted one of the links that he's on Anthony Cardono website.
Yeah, that's the one for the Roboto scene. So you can check that out.
Gotcha.
And if you want to know about my editing and more about my process, check out How to Write a Novel, which is my nonfiction book about writing, or have me back on Ellen's show, and I'll talk all about that stuff.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I don't know if Ellen's having. Let me check and see if Ellen's having an episode tomorrow. They
Get
went
a bunch
to
of editors together and go to town.
They went to every show.
You guys said you wanted to ask me stuff and you didn't get to. We ran out of time, so I'm just offering you the option.
We always, it happens all the time. I think that we always run out of time. But that actually is good for us because we like having guests on that we can just run the hour down and
So
come
yeah,
back in for
so
round two.
the real secret, I'll leave you with the real secret to selling a story is, oh, I'm sorry, we're out of time. We'll have to talk to you another time.
See you next week.
just bait them. Just keep baiting them. Just come back. Just come
Welcome
back.
to the Cliffhanger Podcast, where we never quite finish.
We're going to start the next podcast. So we're going to tell you and reveal the secrets to publishing. And then when we get to and next time, tune in for the secrets of publishing.
And you know what?
Keep
I'm
doing
gonna let them give away 4 copies of the ebook in any format on their Facebook page. So if you want it, I'll let them set it up and figure out how to do it, and I'll get you guys the ebooks later.
Hey, I appreciate that.
So Simon Says. So
Cool.
there'll be a little contest going on Keystroke Medium. Check it out.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right, everybody. Well, we're going to call it for tonight. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us. And Bryan, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's been fun.
Enjoyed it.
Good to meet you.
Nice to
Makes
meet you.
Makes me want to go to Kansas City now. And
we need to go to Kansas City, make a weekend trip.
Well, I want to get together and talk more about the cop stuff because you guys are both cops. So hey, let's do it.
You can never have a good cop story, especially if it involves coyotes.
Yeah, I have some great police versus, well, not versus. It's really more of a coyote collaborative, as I like to think of it. It's kind of a whole nother story. Like I said, next time
on Keystroke Medium, we're talking about coyotes, reading, writing, and everything in between. We'll see you guys later.
Peace. Still alive, so make sure you say something